our minutes from March. Is there a motion?
Move to approve the March minutes. Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
I oppose. All right, minutes are approved, and that brings us to our policy review. We are doing the 700 series tonight and some policy primers. You want me to turn it over to you to do 700s?
Well, good evening. As Lisa said, we are to the 700s, and there are a number of changes in the 700s that we have for your consideration. But only a couple of them are very substantive. Happy to go through all of them, but I'd like to point out a couple at the beginning and then take some questions. The first one, I'm not gonna go in order either, but would be 707.5 G1. Better known as Appendix 9, but we don't call it Appendix 9 in our board policies, and so Appendix 9 actually refers to this policy. And last summer, we talked a lot about Appendix 9 and making some changes to that so that projects could be more visible to the public at that time, and it's something we're still, oh, excuse me, real quick. Kurt Pratt, our new COO, is joining us for our first PVG meeting, so hopefully maybe I'm just gonna get at the board meeting, but glad that Kurt here. And one of the first things we told him about, and this is something Adam and I've been working on, is we need a new system, a project management system. And so that is in the works to help replace what we have as Appendix 9. But that's work that we're hopefully gonna get more in depth to this summer, but that kind of was the backdrop for some of the conversation we had last summer about what are some of the minor tweaks we can make given the limitations of the system. All that to say, one of the things that we settled on was that if a project at step 2 was projected to be over $2 million, we would pull it out of Appendix 9 and give it a standalone item on consent. While we made that working agreement last summer with the board, and we've been doing that throughout the school year, we actually never codified it in board policy. So that's what that language is there for. It's not something that is necessarily new. It's a practice that's been in place and something that we agreed came to collaboration and agreement on last summer with the board and the administration. So that's a lot of background for that language change, but it is pretty significant. But like I said, we've been doing that throughout. Questions or comments on that one? Okay. Second one I like to point out is our printer was also out of ink, so we need to print out my normal summer stuff with my computer. 704.7 honorary memorial gift program. This is, we put this in place a couple of years ago to streamline what people could contribute to into trees and benches. We patterned it after the city, which is still patterned after the city by the city. But like a lot of things, costs go up. And so we've had to be charging more than what was in the policy. And so we're just making those amount changes for what the cost is to cover it. Well, we don't make money on this program. It truly is something that just covers the cost of like over to plant the tree or to put the bench in there. It's been successful. The foundation is a good partner on this for us, but just something as costs increase, we've had to continue to do that as well. We get good feedback on the program. So it's something that we're proud of, but we just want to make sure that we can cover our costs. And then a lot of these have to do with some of the finance programs and procedures that Adam and Alan operate, but also that in here throughout these things about fundraising and activity funds, and so you'll see some of those changes as well. But happy to answer any of the questions you might have on the 700s. But those are the two that we wanted to make sure we pointed out for the board to see.
Chase, I'm not sure if this question is covered in this series policy. You had a inquiry a few months ago, I think, from someone who was interested in how we were handling sales of advertising space in the district. Is that is that under some exposed to that?
Not in the 700s, Charlie. That'll be when we come back together in May. I can't remember if it's in May. 800s are.
No, not very high.
I think it's in one of those 8 or 9, it might be 9.
I think it's in the 800s or 900s. I don't think it's in this one. But we do cover it there, along with people that want to not only buy advertising space, but if you want to come into our building and advertise. Products for sale, what is limitations, what authority does the superintendent have to approve those? And when they have to come to the board or
The
approval.
question that goes in my mind, is what do we do with the income of those?
That income, almost all of it goes to the school activity budgets. So that money is going back directly to the schools. Most of it goes to the high schools, and then some goes to the middle schools and elementaries as well.
But it doesn't go to just one school. Is that right?
Correct. It does not go to just one school.
Can you talk a little bit about 705.1R2? It's like 3 pages are all crossed out, and 3 brand new pages are added, and I'm not reading all that.
Yeah, so
Just trying to get it code based or like what all that.
yep, so this was simply an update, and so if you look at the beginning of the crossed out section, it's CFR part 200 subpart D. Et cetera, et cetera. And then if you go down to the new language, it's the exact same section, so it's the 2 CFR part 200 subpart D. That language was changed outside of the district, and so we simply adopt that federal language and put it in here, and rather than going through and making every single change one by one, we just adopted or included the entire new set of language as one.
I assumed it was something like that, but I
Yeah.
was not gonna read them side by side, but. The only like minor comment I had was on 704.4, which is on page 40. It has the foundation office at the ESC, probably should change that.
I thought we got that.
Okay,
I thought. Evidently not.
okay.
We might have changed it. We might want to say ESC at the Center for Innovation. In that
Oh,
order.
it did say at the district office, so we changed it to, but yeah, we probably need to add at CFI.
We'll clean that up.
Oh,
Oh, wait. Yeah, well, we did change it.
We did.
It said that they meant
Yeah.
the building, so we changed it to the ESC, so yeah, it's just getting the star official title of the
Yeah.
organization.
while we're on 704.4, I kind of had I thought, I guess that the foundation was more separate, more of a separate legal entity than this policy seems to suggest. And I know we were hand in hand with them, but I just thought it was interesting is not the right, I thought it was something, and then put an adjective in that worked. That the board has the right to refuse certain gifts. Made to the district. And that makes sense to me, because there may be times that we don't want to accept a certain gift. But then the foundation, which is a separate 501c3 legal entity. Somehow it suggests that we can also direct if they can refuse a gift. Which I guess that's where I was confused about, because if they're separate and apart from us. Do we have the ability to control them in that way?
So if I can speak to that a little bit, so I'm looking at, are you thinking mostly about the language surrounding, provided those terms are consistent with district policy and applicable law?
That was part of it. It's also the first line of the newly added that our acceptance process has been developed in coordination with the foundation, like that makes it seem like the two are more intertwined than.
Yeah,
I understood them to be, and I
Sure.
guess my concern is if they need to maintain a level of independence in order to keep their 501c3 status. I don't wanna do anything with that muddies that relationship and jeopardizes. their Ability.
so
to remain.
one thing to note is this language was actually developed with Laura at the foundation, reviewing and contributing to it. What I don't know is, the foundation exists in order to support the work of the Iowa City School District. So I don't know if this creates it's a great question.
We could actually strike the
Strike the
first
first
sentence, and it
Yeah.
doesn't necessarily change
Yeah,
the substance, if we think that's what is creating confusion.
I understand what you're saying
I
about
do
the
understand
relationship,
that,
Lisa,
yeah.
or the relationship piece, Lisa, I think the thing is, we wouldn't want, like, you guys have said, we don't want the district to accept the gift, we don't necessarily wanna create a workaround where then it's like, okay, if we had one of those for some reason, now all of a sudden foundation accepts it anyways, right, and it's still
Yeah.
basically in play in some way, and so I get what you're saying about making sure we don't entangle that. Maybe we could do another review of that with legal to make sure there's nothing where we're muddying the waters there, but.
But then on the flip,
Yeah.
my concern is also the flip side, right? Like, if, I guess I don't understand the degree of, uh, the separation that they need to maintain from us, because if we say, no, we don't wanna get for whatever reason, and then the foundation looks like they're going to accept the gift, and then we look at them and say, no, you're not, then they are not a separate, to me, that means they're not a separate entity. They are more involved with the school district than that we then have decision-making over what they're doing. And as a separate legal entity, I'm not sure that we are allowed to have that degree of control. So I get that, like, yeah, we don't wanna create a backdoor, but I don't, well, that's the thing, right? It should be up to their board, not to our board, and like,
And whether or not they let us do it, then let's.
Correct. Correct, no, and as long as they still have that independence and autonomy, then, but I guess my concern is,
Well, the limits are policy and law, basically, right? I mean, that's what we're referencing there, that.
yeah, but it says like gifts and bequests are made through the foundation, like in the second sentence, and
which is what we want.
Process.
Yeah,
that's what we want. But I don't know, when I read that, I'm just a little concerned that they don't have enough independent decision-making authority, or it muddies the water a little bit, that we really are one and the same. And my understanding is that we are not one and the same as a legal entity,
They're
and that's
distinct.
cannot.
Like,
That is correct.
I may
Yes,
end up
like-
a gift to the district or making a donation to the foundation, are those two distinct statements?
Yeah.
Because I don't think
Yes.
this covers the latter. By language.
But like, we're also like telling them the foundation shall maintain records of donations. I don't think it's up to us to tell the foundation how they can run their own independent.
Tim, was the former policy just this without that? paragraph?
Exactly was.
So there was, so this policy, obviously, so Adam said, we worked with Laura to add that, which we thought was for clarity, but if we've somehow made it more convoluted, we can definitely go back. Because I do hear what you're saying, but it is that idea to clarify that we want gifts given to the district.
That was the goal.
Yeah.
Because it really is. If you want to hand a check for $100,000 to Adam, and Charlie wants to hand a check for $100,000 to Laura. Either avenue. Under law, we can accept, right? But this is just trying to set up what our preferences were. Of how we wanted to do it, so.
I mean, if that's the goal, then I think like maybe just a sentence and say the district's preference is that gifts go through the foundation. They are in a better position to do record keeping. What is it?
Yeah.
All of this stuff, like they do that better than we do, but commanding them that they shall do this, I mean, then to me, we're telling them how to operate, which means
But
we have our hands in it.
But to that point, and that's probably the conversation that goes beyond the whole policy to. Some sort of MOU or some sort of working room with the foundation board, look, these are the, beyond our policies or law, these are gifts that we. Expect you to reject, right, so that would be a good thing. Because that would be a deeper conversation.
Yes.
And. Because there are some things that probably abide by state law, federal law, and board policy. That maybe we wouldn't want advertised out there if we just took a large donation. From X, Y, or Z, right? And that goes to our core values and beliefs, so that's a much more involved conversations.
But even aside from like, this is a gift that the board would reject, I could see how there can be a lot of innocent, of gifts that the board would want to accept, but the foundation is in a much better place to accept than like a annuity. Or, you know, some sort of endowment annuity that's going to fund itself for X amount of years. I don't think the district wants to manage a gift like that. That sounds like a nightmare. The foundation is perfectly, so the board may want to reject that. And then say like, hey, if you want to give it, like. But
What would
So-
we would send to the foundation?
Yeah, we would either way.
We can clear it.
yeah.
Yeah, I
I'm
think-
just a little.
Some is, some of it's a policy, some of your regulation, some. Yeah. But, clarifying, saying the market will use, and the employees have foundation. That the two entities were separated, and so.
Yes.
Such a mixed signal. It's that-
This paragraph also speaks to the donor's intent by the department. So if there's some donor intent that's against district policy or state law, right, we still may need some language about that too, that's also. So. We'll work on it.
Yep.
Anything else on the 700?
No, so policy frameworks.
Two pieces in the policy primaries. One was gender identity. Oh, good. Stop the changes. Doesn't need to be race and religion, so those revisions are made simply to keep us in line with. In terms of what are the laws are in the state, so you see a number of policies there. Doesn't that are related to the practice of those changes. That's how. It answers questions, I'm not sure if we can do anything about, yeah, we just keep guys change.
Yeah.
I know.
It's a.
So as I was reading this, my question is, the state has taken gender identity out of the schools, out of the national. So. To me, that's gotta be in the school district consideration.
And so what's your prediction on this?
I cannot still. So. Yeah, say you further just that, then I say this. Because. Protecting you, in the form of something that will be harassment and violence against the child. There's there are. Laws, since they have those families and that kind of. Now that is about that.
We're still working with legal. Theoretically, Charlie, I would say yes. That we can still, obviously still protect students and staff. From bullying, harassment, bullying, harassment as well. But one of the challenges is that the bill signed into law about pronouns. There was the bill, the governor signed the bill that said a staff member or a student could not be disciplined for calling a student by their biological pronouns as opposed to their, right? So that's where that then becomes a complicated question to answer in the abstract. Because you're right, we would want to keep somebody from being bullied or harassed. But if the bullying harassment is in the form of Brady calling a student by their biological pronoun rather than their preferred pronoun. The law protects Brady to do that.
So once a consequence is given, Charlie, then now we have an issue, right? Because then that consequence gets appealed and there's no statutory protection for us as the institution that will give it out that consequence for that to uphold, right? And so basically, you could say, yeah, we want to still include gender identity into this, but nothing, there would be no legal backing that would support that that's a discrimination claim or that that's a bullying, founded bullying harassment. And so
I don't think that aspect of the state's action has been tested in court.
probably not. Probably not.
Yeah,
But I think what we anticipate from legal counsel is that it wouldn't hold up. I think the thing for us is we've talked to staff has just been, you know, we still don't allow people to treat each other bad, right? And so, I mean, that's still a foundational thing. And so whether it's something that's codified in the Civil Rights Act or not, it's not something we're gonna allow in our schools. And so whether it falls technically in a discrimination, discrimination complaint or falls in a bullying harassment case, it may not as one of those protected pieces, but you still can't bully and harass people, you still can't treat people poorly, you still have mechanisms to deal with those things.
So then, Lisa, and Sean, if my preference would be to make some comment about that. Just as some indication that we're still going to protect all students.
Yeah, we're still not gonna allow people to treat each other poorly, based on those things.
When we covered, you wanna say something?
Well, you're
I
sitting up there, I mean, that's fine. Yeah, yes, I will, of course, yeah. The other thing I would, note with that one, Charlie, is when we do the motion on these, when they're approved next month, it'll have a July 1st enactment date.
Right.
So you'll see that in the motion when you guys go to approve the 700 series. That those policy changes are taking place, but they actually don't have them.
We can also work with legal counsel and we can also go back and work with legal counsel and see. if We need more clarity on that balance. The other policy primer is about the custodian of school district records. And the way the policies were proposed to us from ISD is that this become the board secretary. As you all know, we have a fantastic director of community service. Her newest endeavor was wrapping one of our box trucks in our logo, which looks awesome. That's a little bit of a, yeah, but it's really cool. So it's more than 15 seconds to say that. But Kristen, one of her less glamorous duties is she does our public records requests. And so even though the primer came to us, this should be all changed to the board secretary. We've replaced most of it with the executive director of community relations because that's who Ken's going to funnel into anyway. So rather than coming back or doing that, we've just made it Kristen's job. I buttered her up on the front end, we didn't tell her this before we got here, so trying to stay in a good place. But no change in practices really, just some federal stuff with the state, so we'll better fit our district. Or we can let the state.
Did you physically wrap the bottom porch just out of the weekend? Out there with like the wow.
And with the truck.
The truck is in. You guys remember the video shoot? It was awesome.
It's the compliment sandwich. Yeah.
So that's it for this one.
Questions or other comments?
Yeah.
Board members?
And much like I mentioned at the last, one, there's a handful of spots, there's a couple spots where. The address on CFI says Butte Street instead of Butte Road. There are a couple of places where it's just people's offices here. And one specifically says, ESC still, so there's a handful.
In the 700, Sean, or in the primary?
In the primers,
Okay.
I wrote down 4 of those, scroll through really fast, so I would just kind of run through.
We'll go through
We'll
those.
go back there.
And substantive
That
questions.
is a substantive edit.
It is.
Good, it's important that referencing the right builders.
What?
Ollie,
Yeah.
quiet, anything? No, fine.
Part of what, just one thing is those keep coming up, Tim's kind of sidebarring with us here. So we will continue to refer to the ESC at CFI as far as that level of our building. So there may be some policy references where you continue to see language ed services center. We may go back and do an additional cleanup, just knowing the conversation it's generating here to say ESC at CFI, right? Just to clean that up, but we're trying to do eventual signage and reference for people so they know which floor is kind of responsible for kind of the admin offices, of which is the other part of it. So we'll work to get that message.
Employee contracts. Is there any, we have,
same
just,
thing,
yeah,
where the address is
Yeah.
there. Yep.
I don't want to change 2000.
I know, that's where I'm at, the employee.
All right, well, that brings us to agenda settings, and I have a feeling I'm going out on a limb.
Careful.
We're doing the 800s in there.
8 and 9.
Give you a bonus section.
I don't, we still my meeting hard. Oh,
I bet we could still get it done in 25 minutes.
Well,
So we'll not need to do an
that's
hour.
challenge accepted, sir. No, we would have this robust of a discussion about the 700. So our next meeting will be May, it's the second meeting in May 7th.
Yep.
And then we break for the summer, right? No June,
Right.
July, yeah, so that May meeting will be our last one. Is there a motion?
To adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, opposed, all right, see everybody in May. What?